Um, I'm very delighted to be here, and it's an honor to be speaking to you here in Hong Kong at the Business of Design Week, especially because what I would like to talk about, design as a tool for change, is a passion for me. It's not just a profession, it's something I truly believe in. At our studio, we work interdisciplinary with contemporary art, design, architecture, and we do so because we truly believe that design should not only be a profession that solves a solution, gives you a solution, or is used in a functional way, but should actually lead to creating inspiration, should lead to creating learning environments where we develop ourselves, where we maybe change and are able to better our society and our surroundings. So when we work with design, we do not have a goal of creating objects, buildings, spaces, but we have a goal of actually developing us, human beings. And this is actually quite easy because we are born with the ability, a gene for curiosity. I mean, when children see something they find attractive, which is strange, maybe tasting good, they reach out, they want to touch, they want to taste. And although when we grow up, we try to, kind of sit still and behave, somehow we never get rid of this curiosity. And this is fantastic for us as designers, because we can actually make you reach out, try something different, influence your mind, think different, maybe behave different. So, what if design surrounds us and provides us with an environment that actually makes us think faster, better, perform even further on than we actually can? When design adds an extra value and therefore changes the world. So what I would like to talk with you about today is actually about influencing our brain and creating physical environments that makes us grow as human beings. There's 3 subjects overall, and I will illustrate them with some of our projects. The first one I'd like to talk about is new ways of learning, because education is something that is very important and is at the core of our society and the development of our society. Strangely, somehow, at this moment, most schools and educational environments are behind where we are in our society. It should be the other way around, because we are educating, children for the world of tomorrow. So schools should always be ahead of developments in society, preparing them for a future. But the contrary is true. Often, children and young pupils, they are much faster and better in using the internet or in using digital media than the teachers are, and they have a much better understanding of the world of tomorrow. So, I would like to show you a project which is a school in Sweden. It's one out of a series of schools. I showed 2 schools very fast. But it will actually tell you also about, not only about the project, but also about design as a tool. In this case, as a tool for creating new ways of learning. First of all, a picture of an industrial building. The organization Vittra in Sweden is what we call a free school organization. That means it's kind of a private school, partly private school, meaning that they can actually work with their own ideas of pedagogy, implementing them in their school environment. So for 6 years ago, they had some architects to make a blueprint of a building that supported their way of teaching. The problem is, they built 70 schools that way. They are 6 years further on, and now the schools already turned out to be outdated, and the building became actually a barrier for their way of developing their teaching. So when we started talking, they said, okay, we have to change this. Further on now, we try to move from focusing on new buildings on to actually looking at interior design maybe looking at existing buildings, transforming them slightly, not putting so much effort in the building project, and using the interior design because it will give us a higher flexibility of using design as an element or tool for developing our learning and teaching. And one of the reasons why the old school environments were not actually working well anymore was because they had introduced an iPad to all the 6-year-olds. They started to give all 6-year-old children an iPad and a MacBook when they started at their primary schools. And suddenly the buildings just didn't function because the working methods, they changed. So we started with saying, okay, how do you work? What kind of pedagogy and building methods do you have? And what you see here behind me are 5 icons which we used to design and plan the school with. And they cover most of their pedagogy and working strategies. Actually, they cover most of their forms of communication, and they could be used in any environment, not only schools, also in a working environment. Now, this one over here covers what we call mountaintop education, meaning what I do right now, talking to you, meaning one-way communication. It can also be something you upload on a comment block. This one is covering cave situations, meaning closing around yourself, concentrating, focusing, and not communicating with your surroundings. This one is covering campfire situations, meaning we get together, we work as a group, and we concentrate in this little group on what we do together, but we communicate inside. This one is covering watering hole situations, meaning communicating, you know, across each other, doing a lot of knowledge sharing because you actually pass by these moments or places where you have kind of rapid movement. And this one covers what we call hands-on or laboratories, meaning places where actually your body is part of a learning process. That can be chemistry, but it can also be, you know, kind of with small kids, you know, starting to jump the letters and exercise this way and learning them. Because actually our body should be part of our learning process, and it can be a tool for that as well. So these 5 elements we used for space planning, and the result was a space planning which is quite revolutionary for a school. There are no corridors, there are no classrooms, it's very open. We started, it's not an open school. There's a lot of rooms and closed environments. It's just not like long corridors with similar rooms for 30 kids and 1 teacher. And this is very different because they have a system throughout the day. We made this kind of scripts together with teachers describing what happens with the children coming in the morning throughout the day. And they don't have these moments where they just sit with 25 or 30 children and having 1 adult telling them. They have a lot of different moments in small and large groups, alone, and so on. So this school is modeled after their way of working. So here we are inside the school. We are seeing here what we call the mountain. It's in the center of the school. The school, I have to tell you, is for 6 to 12-year-olds and around 250 children. So it's a small school in this old industrial environment. This mountain on this side, you can see an environment for laboratory, for experimenting. The mountain is the stairs. It's also a tribune, a place where they sit, where they have performances. There's a theater scene on the opposite side. But it's also a place to just lay down and learn. Inside the mountain is a kind of small cinema where the children can sit, have a small group work, but they can also use the big screen. And on the other side of the school, we have something we call the tree. We worked with a thing we call for points of identification. Because what happens if you don't have a structure in a building where you can say, okay, you know, English at 12 o'clock in room 301. Then how do you find where to go? We created a culture where you say, okay, we have English at 12 o'clock under the tree. This, what happens is that you get a different culture, a different way of navigating. but you also create an environment which is more, I don't know, appealing, human. You know, the children, one of the most important things that happened at this school was that they had told us, trying to design a school, the children do not want to go home often. This was quite, I thought, a fantastic brief, because think about this for one moment, you know, when you actually talk with people that are specialized in learning and the way our brain works, it's quite obvious that if you do not want to learn something, if you are not motivated, you cannot learn. And it's actually, at least it's very, very hard. You really have to take this learning into you, you know. But if you enjoy yourself and it's exciting and you feel challenged, you know, of course you like this. Because our brain, our body, our human beings, we are coded. We are made for learning. When our brain is not challenged, when we are really, really bored, we get ill. Our hair gets gray, our skin gets yellow, our teeth fall out, we get heart disease, you know. So this is not acknowledged, that we actually need to challenge ourselves. So this is also a part of learning when you're a child. Learn how to challenge yourself intellectually. Anyway, the tree. Here with children at a little after-school situation. And a table developed together with the children, which is more organic. They can sit in different groupings. They can actually pop up in the middle of the tree. We had a design team of children we worked together with. And our brief was that the school, all the design had to be approved by the children before we were actually allowed to pass it on to the management of the organization. And this gave us some challenges, because the first layout we presented, the kids told us that far too many tables and chairs, no go. And we said, okay, but I mean, you do have to, you know, sit somewhere. And well, we talked with them and they said, well, we don't want tables and chairs. We want to sit somewhere where we can have, you know, on the ground, where we can have our laptop like this, you know, on our knees. And then if it is possible for us to sit with 5 children together, all at once, watching this one screen, it would be even more fantastic. So we worked with them, giving them a lot of different kind of working environments. Here you can see them in something we call window pods, where they sit up in the window, partly secluded. And then we made this furniture, which is kind of in a watering hole place. It's actually a kind of a connecting corridor. It's not really a corridor. And here we did this. You know, here we have a little series for you. Here you can see the children. They can. Why should you sit on a chair at the table? You know. Here is another situation. You know, they're perfectly all right, working. Another situation. So here we could see a piece of furniture that actually provides the children on a serious, you know, basis of a serious design process with something they need, and that it works very well. Here behind you, you see something we call the media lab, small house in the middle of the school. There's small rooms in it where you can be alone and work, but there's also a professional sound studio in it, a studio to work with animation and some, you know, computer gear, which is a bit heavier than their laptops. And there to the right, you can actually see something we call concentration niches, which we placed around the school. They're small booths, one could say, where you can sit alone or with 2 people in different positions, you know, towards the window, with your back to the room and so on. They were very popular with the teachers. They were very convinced of that the children really needed these booths to be working alone. And after we evaluated the project after 1 year, we can see that the teachers still think they're a really good idea, but they're mostly, well, they're not used that much by the children, to be honest. Yeah, just the surface to play with, inside, outside. Of course, there are also situations which are more classical, where you have a group, you know, listening to a person. That is also part of a learning day. And then there are just environmental, kind of, we call them obstacles or furnitures that invite you to interact with space in a different way. Creating small, actually a space around you without rules. And then in the middle of the school we have something we call the dance hall, because we said, okay, it is also very important to have somewhere where you can move, and this is not for gymnastics. This is a space which is actually made for making a lot of noise, for actually moving as a part of a learning sequence, which is not, they have special facilities for going to the gym and gymnastics, playing football and so on. This is also a film studio. You can darken it, the light from above, and it's been used as a green screen. They have this kind of special inbuilt lighting facilities, so they use it in connection with the media lab for producing movies. Well, this was just this first project we did. Now we are on, because we have 32 schools, so we're kind of, working on. And I shortly want to show you just one little detail of another school we just finished. And I'm not going to show you the entire school, but I'm going to show you one specific thing which I think is very interesting, namely the library. This is the school in the center of Stockholm, and here we did something special. We made a treasure box, because you have to understand that we work a lot with libraries as well, and libraries today, we don't call them libraries anymore, we start to call them for media centers. And libraries, they have a challenge, because we change our behavior with media. And in our society, at least in Scandinavia, you don't actually need to go and borrow a book. So libraries are not really used anymore for borrowing books, but they're used more as a social space, a cultural center for people to meet and so on. But they're losing public if they don't change. So we actually made a collaboration project with the local library and the school. Because the local library, they actually noticed that especially young people, when they would not go to the library anymore because of, they don't need to go there with school, they wouldn't come there anymore. They only come there when they all feel obliged to come there. On the other hand, we could also see that the school, had an interest in, develop, their knowledge about different media and how to behave towards this, especially the teachers, because a lot of teachers, they actually find it quite hard how to tell their students to, for example, when you search information for some work at school, how to, how to digest, how to know which is valid and how to know which information is not valid. So, for example, and how to search the right place when you have like 80,000 hits on a subject, how to tell the pupil to select. So this whole thing we try to combine. So here you come into the school, and then here behind me you see the treasure box in the middle of a big open space, surrounded with a lot of learning environments where the pupils can work in different ways. And the idea was, we look into the treasure box, the library, the idea was to employ one specific person that works with new media and all kinds of cultural expressions into the library, and this way providing this environment, with a lot of inspiration. Also actually teaching the teachers, not only the pupils and in the school. Around it are a lot of different kind of working spaces. You can see here's inside. And when it's closed, there's windows, and you can see, it looks like intriguing, and you want actually to go into this space. The space has been used by the entire school, all the pupils from 6 to 16, but the space surrounding the working environment is mostly used by the a bit older pupils. Here we can see them sitting and working. And again, this is kind of a library table, serious studying, but this is also serious studying and working. The idea was actually to create a catalysator in the core of the school, developing the school from the inside. The idea is that you use design to trigger a certain kind of development, not necessarily right away, but because the future needs to be conquered bit by bit. Oh God, I only have 5 minutes left. And I have 2 more projects to tell you. So I'm speed up here. Because I really would like to tell you not only about school environments, but also about innovative offices. Because when we talk about design as a tool for change, we definitely have to talk about how to change the place where we work. Because today, a lot of people at a workspace, need not only, to, be qualified, educated for the work they do, they also, actually need to perform better than they would do by themselves. So as a company, you're interested in trying to make the people perform even more than they would naturally do. And their design can be used as a tool. So what you see here behind you is a project I'm going to show you. We did with the LEGO company, their development department. And here we actually use design as a strategic tool. We looked at their brands and their values. We looked at their organization and their workflows. And then we looked at the space and the design. And how can we make the space surrounding the development department to make the development department actually come up with even better ideas, because that's where they could be most competitive. Now you have to understand, now I have two pictures on the way it was when we arrived. They sit in this big industrial building, and the designers, they love this, because this is kind of a creative space, you know, having this kind of atelier, artistic big building. The problem is that it's not made for working with Lego. It was just a normal, you know, disc, chair, and so on, so on, so on. And somehow it's not representing the values, you know, the thing they actually have to do, because Lego is a toy. Lego is fun. But how can you create something that is fun when you sit in an environment which is not fun? So we worked with them on introducing fun into their working environment. And not only, you know, fun as a value, you know, having a slide, but also in a way to approach the design. So this is, for example, was an old iron bridge, and if you walked over it, it would make a lot of noise. So we kind of made it into one big soft animal, one would say, turning into a sofa, into meeting situations. Here you can see the environment behind me. We used a lot of visual kind of model towers, as you can see here, because when you're a designer, you need visuality, you need to see, you know, to get inspired. But if everything is kind of clustered together, you cannot see it anymore. It's like what we say in Danish, we say you cannot see the forest for the trees for the forest. Anyway, exhibition podiums. This is a meeting room and a playing room. And this is just, you know, somewhere in the corridor, but also a working space. Small working rooms, using color in different ways, being important when you work with toys, for example, creating Lego for girls. And also using all this kind of in-between areas where it's obvious to meet each other and to have it as an area of knowledge sharing. So this is actually a meeting space in the corridor. And then we have a little garden, a bonsai garden we call it, where you can actually keep on playing with your Lego figures. The funny thing about Lego is that, you know, it's this kind of small toys, and when you are a child, you project your fantasy into this small world with this kind of small figures. But, you know, we thought we would like to turn that around. You know, do you all know this feeling that when you're a child and then you think maybe one day you wake up and you're actually just a dream of some kind of giant? I don't know, but you know, with some of the kids I talked with, they told me about this kind of idea. I mean, is this world for real? So we said, okay, you are actually a toy of this big Lego man, you know. So we made this giant universe with big grass on the walls and big Lego man, you know, looking at you, working at the Lego department. Here's a library. This is a they call it the brickothèque, you know, because it's a library of bricks. The most important thing of their working environment is actually knowledge sharing, talking together, creating better ideas together. So the focus is on meeting each other and actually exchanging ideas. This is going to be my final remark because unfortunately I am out of time. But I had so many other beautiful things to tell you. But I actually have 1 minute left. I can try to speed up. Can I take 1 minute of my questions for us? Great. So I have 2 minutes. I just want to show you a small art project, which is fun. It's about public space. And it's about, you know, it doesn't have to be that big and that difficult to change the world surrounding us. It's a sign project, we call it. And it's been running in a lot of different cities, among others New York, Istanbul, Budapest, Copenhagen, and so on. It started in Sweden as a part of an art museum that asked us to do a project inside the museum. And we said, well, you know, we like to interact with the public, and we ended up doing a sign project in the city about all these hidden rules. You know, this thing you're not you know, it's not officially forbidden or officially allowed, but you know, we know what to do and not to do and kind of showing them. So we made, for example, a sign here that says sleeping zone. In Sweden, you do not do things like that. You do not sleep in public, you know. But when it says sleeping zone, oh, it's allowed, you know, so then people do, you know. This is in Istanbul, and it says hugging zone, you know. Here it says home zone. And of course also commenting on issues of society, like pollution. We also made this sign, combining 3 religious signs with Kemal Atatürk, which is well, the father of Turkey, and we got into some trouble because we had a lot of, people got very angry with the sign, destroyed it. We had a big media crisis. It was my 5 minutes of fame, you know, it was in CNN, interviewed and so on, so on, so on. You know. But the end of the story is that actually they had a very valuable discussion, and the one political party excused to the other political party, and they actually discussed about art in public space, and that it should be possible to have projects like that. This is in Copenhagen. In Copenhagen we behave very nicely. We do not shout and sing in public. This is a boat space, you know, being a yoga space. Or this is also Copenhagen, cross-dressing space. Silent disco, dancing the day away. And this again, 4 different religions combined in front of the local, how you call it, municipality in Copenhagen, being destroyed the day after. They didn't like that one either. But no media crisis in Denmark about that one. Then we came to New York. And there, the city of New York, together with the Architect Foundation, they asked me if we could do some signs that actually commented movement, physical action in public space, because they have a problem with people getting, well, you know, bigger and bigger. And they would like people to start to move more and more with small movements in every day, like taking the stairs instead of taking the elevator, but in a funny way. So here's Jumping Jack and Jill Zone in Soho, Manhattan. We also did in Soho a shoplifting zone, you know, we like that one. And we went on with air guitar and racing, you know. I mean, all this actually, think about it, you know. We always try to move as little as possible, and maybe that's wrong, you know. I mean, you can be very proud. There's always a touch of humor, you know, in the signs. So you read them straight away and you laugh. It's a very easy project. We did it in many places, you know, and it actually just makes people think, hey, is this my life? Why do I behave as I do, you know? This is now going to be my finishing slide. Somehow I just feel that I would like to pass on, you know, this I don't know, this passion for design, that we're thinking, forming, and thinking, commenting on the way we behave, the way we act, the way we think, you know. We can actually do so many things, you know. We can actually make us not stop any time and keep on moving all the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rosan, for sharing us the very, very interesting, amazing, and inspiring projects. So it's time to take questions from the floor. Okay.
Thank you, Rosan, for your very inspiring talk. I really appreciated the way you integrated design, play, and education, and I think it's a very powerful message you sent to all of us here in the audience. I have one question now. You use play in the workplace, play in the teaching place, and I was wondering if you have had any method to assess how efficient the integration of play with such spaces have been for either the children or the workers at LEGO.
Well, yes and no. I mean, it depends on what kind of results you are wanting, but you know, projects like we did in the LEGO company, we also worked with other companies, a medical company called Coloplast, for example. But companies like LEGO, they don't do this for fun, although it sounds like fun, you know, it's fun with a reason. So of course they research the consequences and the effect of a project like that. So we have an evaluation of this project. And the project we did, I showed you right now, was not the first project. We had done some things before as well. So, and I don't actually think that it's just, I mean, I don't, you know, I don't think this is so special. I mean, understand me well, I think I'm very special, but at the same time, I also think it's a tendency we can see many other places. There are a lot of companies that started to realize that, especially if you want to enhance, you know, I mean, we talk about high knowledge workers, creativity, innovation. If you want this to happen, you know, you have to actually to, you know, it doesn't come out of putting a lot of people with the right education in a room and then just sit and wait. You know, you can actually do something to get something better out of it. And yes, there's a lot of research being done, and we follow up. And the schools, same thing. There's a lot of attention on it. The problem is a bit isolating. You know, what do you want to measure? At the Vittra schools, the one school you saw is only 1 year old, so it's of course limited how much data we have at this moment. But they said that their main goal is actually enhancing the concentration of all of their pupils with 5 minutes a day. If they manage to enhance concentration with 5 minutes a day, it's, you know, it kind of means in their whole organization with 32 schools, I don't know how many teachers' jobs, but it means it's really a large, it's actually also economic question in that sense, you know.
Yeah, there's this great quote from Brian Sutton Smith: the opposite of play is not work, the opposite of play is depression.
Exactly, yes, please, good. Very good, I agree. Actually, can I add a comment to that?
Sure, sure.
Just shortly, because the thing is that, you know, we never wonder how bad it actually is because it's so dull, you know, and so depressive. I mean, why? It's so logical that, of course, when you're motivated, you learn faster, you develop better. So somehow it's a bit strange that you have to prove that when an environment is inspiring and, you know, you have a lot of possibilities of challenging your own intellectual development, that should be good. It's actually quite, you know, it should be the other way around somehow. Yeah.
Yes. Any other one?
What's your educational background, and where do you get all this inspiration from playing and education? And just wanted to ask.
Well, my educational background, you know, officially, is I went to art school in Holland and in Barcelona, Spain. But somehow I don't really think that is so important, to be honest, because I learned most. I've been doing this type of projects now for 12 years. And I mean, you know, what I learned through going through each project, you know, is so much more than what I ever learned at school. So that's for one. Another thing is as well that, you know, this project, I don't know, create them alone, you know. I mean, I have a studio, I have very qualified, very different type of people working with me. And these projects are always created in a team. We always involve people also from outside, educationalists, people that have specific knowledge on what we work with. So they're actually kind of group work. I mean, we always lift much better when we live together.
Studio employees not art background, are they all from all of their other major, or you said a teamwork? Your studio employees.
Yes. Well, in my studio, we're not all artists or designers or architects. I mean, there are, of course, designers and architects, but I also have anthropologists, people, I have to pronounce this always wrong in English, sociologists, sociologists, yeah, social, well, that one, yeah. You know, and for example, and we work a lot with communication, but of course, for very specific knowledge, you need to get people from outside because it's different for each project.
Yes, okay. So I can see the projects, reason why the project becomes so energetic and so vibrant, because I can see Rosan's personality right here. So, you know, you're a very energetic person by looking at, you know, the way you talk. So I think the very, very interesting part is the person that designed the space, what you try to, you know, talk and what you try to give to the audience really, really depends on your own personality, first of all. So you're giving a happy world to the society. So thank you very much to Rosan, and let's give another round of applause to Rosan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.